Hello everyone, I'm Daniel, this is Chris, and you're watching the Superhero Show. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about why we probably thought Guardians of the Galaxy was better than Marvel's The Avengers. Now, we asked for your feedback, and for once, we're going to actually go through all the feedback.
We got a lot.
And relay your points. We got a lot of
and
feedback.
You broke my inbox.
Yeah.
So, apologies if we don't read out your email, but there was a lot to get through. So I'll kick off with the first one from Joseph Klauser, who says, I personally enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy a decent bit more than the Avengers. Even though the Avengers had much bigger names, all they ever did was butt heads for the first hour. That didn't make me care about them as much as in their own films. I probably need to see both films again, but as it stands, go Guardians.
Interesting. Do you want to discuss or go straight through them?
Well, if there's something to discuss, I think there's a few on a similar point to begin with.
So, similar. Alex, very positive. Great discussion last week, but I was reluctant to even consider Guardians being better than the Avengers due to the iconic nature of those characters. However, I have to admit, you have provided some really compelling arguments. Obviously, that's why you come here. I haven't come to a decision yet, but we'll definitely be thinking it over. What a great problem to have in Marvel's Phase 2.
Which is what we agreed on, I think. Oh, that hit me. It is a nice problem to have, though, isn't it? This is from Keanu. We have a listener called Keanu, which I think is pretty cool.
Like, something like tranquil
wind over the mountains.
Yeah.
I believe from the 80s. The Guardians definitely has its weak points, Keanu says, but I think that is forgivable because of the scope of the film. And then he goes on to make an interesting point, Daniel. He says, the best testimony I could give to this movie is that for once, after walking out of the movie with my sister, a non-comic reading teenage girl, it was the first time I didn't have to explain anything to her. Every part of the main team was so well developed, anyone could understand their relationship.
Wow.
So I think for non-nerds, it's an easy one. Yeah, very accessible.
Again, well done, James Gunn. What a
James
magnificent job he's done.
Tip of the hat.
Okay, Richard, he said, it was simply a great experience to have with my family. My sisters cried during the first minute of the movie, my parents revelled in the music that was popular during their youth, and all of us were in awe of the epic that was Guardians of the Galaxy.
So slightly worrying, his parents revelled in the music that was popular during their youth. It was popular during my youth as well. Does that mean I'm really old?
It just means you're of childbearing age.
I'm mature. So that's great. I mean, it's nice that people of all ages are enjoying it.
I saw a lot of buzz over Twitter over the weekend. Was like, it's just playing to every kind of audience and
every demographic. 4-quadrant, they call it, a 4-quadrant movie.
That's sexy, isn't it?
Alfred Joseph says, I like the Avengers, but a lot less than most people because the big threat was mundane. Loki getting smashed by Hulk was hilarious, but it just made me think he was a bad villain who could easily be taken out. In Guardians' case, the villain Ronan may not be fully developed, but he seemed like a real threat.
On a similar note to Ronan, and this is Benjamin, he says, well, I wouldn't say Guardians of the Galaxy is the best Marvel movie. I would say it's my second after Captain America 2. Its strong point is, as you said, the main characters and humour. But what ruined it for me was the villain. Not only did I think Ronan's backstory could have been fleshed out a little more, I also think his general appearance was poor. The black makeup that he puts on his face looks really rough and ugly and kind of ruins the image. I discussed this a bit in the review. Like, I think obviously you could have a stronger, more rounded, compelling villain. But then, you know what? All the good stuff you said about the cast and the characters, probably it would have detracted from that. Like, the focus is on building the team, and the villain is really just a catalyst to let that happen, rather than setting up some kind of massive clash between hero and villain.
I could have had another 10 minutes of that movie, though, where I found out a bit more about him.
You don't really have much, do you, to grasp?
No.
And also you've got Nebula as well in the mix. So it gets a little bit messy at that point, I think.
Yeah. This is from Matt Hodgkins, who says, Guardians simply can't be compared to the Avengers because they are two different types of hero. I feel the Guardians are anti-heroes. For 60% of the film, they are motivated by the reward they will receive for collecting the Infinity Gem. The fact they are anti-heroes allows the comedy to work so well. If the Avengers were undercutting each other all the time, the film would quickly appear cheap because it simply wouldn't fit the characters. I think the battle of Avengers and Guardians doesn't exist because Avengers is the best superhero film and Guardians is the best anti-hero movie. Interesting point.
Yes. We've got Daniel here. Hey Dan. He says he's on about, like, in the Avengers how Hawkeye and to a lesser extent Black Widow do get shunned to the sidelines, and he thinks the great strength about Guardians is that every character was developed, every character had likeable traits and their time to shine, and not only their time to shine but a moment for them to step up and look after their friends. And I think that's right. Yeah. There's always moments between all the different characters. And he says the great thing about it, and I think he's the fan of the comics, he says Drax was always the least interesting to him as a fan of the comics. But after watching the film, I think he's arguably the strongest character, especially in terms of humour. He redeems himself and gives you a reason to like him.
Yeah, that's interesting.
He's a bit of a secret weapon, David Bautista, in that film.
Yeah, when I went on the set, didn't really get it. You watched the trailers, didn't really get it, and then you saw the film for me, and you were like, "Wait till you see."
Bautista, yeah, and they kept all of that stuff out of the trailers, which is kind of they could have easily thrown in some of those one-liners, but they don't.
Yeah, good job. Again, James Gunn. This is from Andrew Pennington, who says, this film did for me at 21 what Star Wars did for me when it was re-released in 1997, in terms of falling in love with the universe created. The film did a great job of making an emotional connection with the characters, a thing I feel the other Marvel movies have lacked in recent outings. So that's interesting. I think that's something we talked about really genuinely caring for these characters. And I think I said about the Tony Stark at the end of the Avengers versus Groot at the end of this one, they both making a similar sacrifice, but the Groot one was the one that really got me there.
Really, like the Iron Man one does get me because it's for him, it's more the culmination of his personal journey of being this supremely arrogant, individualistic person who cares only about himself at the start of Iron Man 1, and then by the time you get to the end of the Avengers, he's making a sacrifice for all of humankind. But yeah, I agree with that. Like, because I think because so much is set up in like the kind of Marvel Earth world, you kind of getting maybe less of the character stuff, more of the kind of world building at the moment. Yeah, and the bigger schemes and Hydra and all that sort of machinery.
Yeah, Cap 2 was very, very much plot driven. Yeah, wasn't it? And I will say that a lot of the emails we said we received this week said rather than liking Avengers or Guardians best, Captain America 2 was the favourite. So really, this summer, that one is really... Yeah, people are loving that one.
One plot-driven, one character-driven. Or seamless. So Miles, he said, I absolutely loved the Guardians. Again, didn't really have high expectations for it to begin with, so I was blown away with how good it was. Almost perfect. I don't know about you guys at IGN, but seeing an ensemble film with no previous films to explain origins and backstories works so well gives me more than hope for Batman vs Superman can do the same with all the iterations and new characters without overcrowding and stealing precious screen time for the more important roles. Now, when we talk about Batman v Superman, and every week when we say a new character's been added, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, we always get really sceptical, like how can it serve all these characters? And Guardians does show that with the right director, the right script, the right treatment, you can spill in many plates and bring it together. Yeah. The question is Schneider the man to do that?
And the other question is, do we want that? Surely Batman and Superman are enough to carry a film on their own. Plus, I want 2.5 hours of those two guys. I feel like I don't need all these peripheral characters to come in. Whereas
this is Guardians is more of a natural team. They're conceptualized as a team to fill different roles. Whereas that is a team of individuals.
But who knows? These might just be cameos because Justice League should be the movie where they all get their screen time. Yeah. So maybe these are just popping up here and there. Okay. So this has all been very pro-Guardians, and I think it's fair to say that about 80% of the emails we received like Guardians best, but we did receive some naysayers on the other side of the fence. So this is from Owen Dedman, who says, having seen both, I still believe Avengers is better. Don't get me wrong, Guardians was amazing, but I feel the way they set up Avengers over years really made it more of a build-up to an event that totally lived up to and beyond the hype. Which I think is something we can agree with. It felt like an amazing event, didn't it?
It did.
We just happened to like Guardians.
I was genuinely elated in both, really. Like, I was gleeful throughout them, and then afterwards you're kind of on a high. And it's that thing, you go to the pub afterwards, and you go, oh, what about that bit? Oh, you remember this bit? Do you remember that bit? And you're walking home, and you can remember more bits. And reading this email from Jake, I just remembered another one. He says he still thinks Avengers still comes out on top and edges it. Don't get me wrong, I thought Guardians was great. It does have some of the best characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Rocket in particular. I think it's interesting how everyone has a different favourite character.
Yeah, I put a poll up on the site.
And that shows you just how good they are.
Yeah, and Rocket looks like he's coming out on top.
Really?
Yeah.
I just think they're all pretty great. That bit where he's drunk and upset was really kind of heartfelt and unexpected. I kind of forgotten about that moment. It's a great moment where he's drunk and he talks about being ripped apart and put back together, and he didn't ask to be like this. Yeah. It's a really great little character moment. It only takes a couple of minutes on screen time. The whole, and then he says... But I think that it was very exposition heavy in parts, especially at the start. Ronan would have been a much better villain if we had seen him commit acts of mass destruction rather than just being an alleged genocidal maniac. Equally, I don't think Thanos was handled very well. That's why I think Avengers comes out on top.
It's funny, we had some emails saying Thanos was handled badly, some that he was handled well.
It's not much to handle.
He was just dropped in, wasn't he, really?
It's seeding that character.
He looked cool.
He looks big.
I like his chin.
That is my critical insight. He looks big.
I like his big Brolin chin.
There you go.
Chris Neely says James Gunn did a great job on the film. I would love for him to tie in Guardians of the Galaxy and Hulk to a Planet Hulk movie somehow.
Planet Hulk keeps coming back again and again,
does.
doesn't it?
People love Planet Hulk.
Well,
Do you want to see the Guardians popping up in a Planet Hulk movie? Groot and Hulk would be a good fight.
Oh, Groot and Hulk. It's never going to... Imagine if... We need the Fantastic Four rights back, and everyone wants... You want the Thing Hulk.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Green on orange.
Finley says, undoubtedly Guardians of the Galaxy is the best Marvel film to date. As a geek, nerd, science and technology enthusiast, all that kept going through my mind is how far the technology has advanced for the creation of these films. I would not have imagined that many of the characters that I once saw in comic books as a child would be seen on the big screen, and it feels great. Now I contemplate, is this film on par with The Dark Knight or better?
So I was thinking, I thought
that's next week's show.
I thought I'd finish on that because that set things up. But I agree. I think Avengers aren't the winner in this. Guardians aren't the winner in this. We're the winners.
Yeah, so much good stuff. It's actually happening. And on the Dark Knight question, I think it's a very different film and very hard to compare. But what Guardians reminds me of, and I think in years to come, it's gonna, I don't know, it has the potential to be something like a Back to the Future or a Goonies or that kind of movie that you find, and you every time it's on TV at the weekend you watch it again and again. There's just something about it, and you've seen it a couple of times. It just seems like that movie that you'll fall in love with, that you'll watch when you feel ill to make you feel better. And
I enjoyed
it
it just as much the second time. We'll see, but is it better than Dark Knight? I don't know. I can't start thinking about that.
Yeah, but if you've got any thoughts on that, you should let us know at IGN_UK feedback at IGN.com. I am going to get that changed.
No, you're not, are you?
I will.
You just did it to wind me up.
I just don't know the person in IT.
If you know the person in IT, email us and tell us.
If you work at IGN and watch this, can you email me and Chris to tell me who at IT can sort that out for us? Because that'd be really helpful.
Then you'd be our very own superhero.
Yeah, and then we'll have it. And not the best ending we've ever done.
No.
But probably the most pragmatic.
But an ending nevertheless.